Okay, all right, here we go. We're live. So listen, this you're watching this, and I am sharing this with you because we're really addressing the question of how consultants and coaches and subject matter experts are thriving or can still thrive in the midst of the chaos, right? And really any climate where there's a lot of uncertainty and a lack of predictability and maybe even sometimes a lack of clarity. So if that's a pain point for you and or someone that you know that you're close to or work with, listen on. So I want to tell you a quick story about it's something I've been able to actually experience and witness. That's a reflection of this question, right? Answering this question of how coaches and consultants or subject matter experts are still thriving in the midst of this chaos. So when the story is this, when Charles called me in February, he needed a hero, right? And not because like his business needed rescuing, but he was looking for a combination of a hero, a digital marketing hitman, someone to bounce an idea off of and see what was possible. And so he reached out and asked for me to take a look at his business. He said, "Hey, Bowie, I have an idea that I need your help with." And so I'm like, okay. And then, like anything else, he then went ahead and, in my opinion, just kind of dragged his feet a little bit for a few weeks before he called back, right? And before he called back to tell me what he needed help with. So, the next call, he calls and he says, okay. And I say, okay, look, talk to me. What do you need help with? And what happened was he went on to show me the social media sort of footprint, right, of a particular person who was selling a program that was in the thousands of dollars, right? A coaching program, right? And that person was a subject matter expert. That person was marketing. That person, was a subject matter expert, was a marketing, and it was a third thing. Market coach. There's a third thing I'm drawing a blank, but at the end of the day, fundamentally, they were doing pretty well in sort of like a comparable niche to where Charles was in, right? And now, this was at the start of the lockdowns, at the start of the pandemic, and so the guy Charles was telling me about was in a position where he was pulling in thousands of dollars, right, online, and from a coaching program, right, and it was kind of annoying, right? I knew it wasn't like annoying, but it was one of those situations where you're looking at someone, like Charles was looking at this person, right? Kind of, like, okay, how's this happening? And because that guy wasn't better than him, that guy wasn't more qualified, or just in any way, really, right? But Charles had to confess that guy was taking action, right? That guy was actually doing something with what he knew as a specialized, as a subject matter expert, right? And so all that said, the thing I was going to say was this person who was online, was the trifecta, right? That person was a great salesperson, a great salesman, saleswoman. That person was a marketer, right? Or at least was marketing, and they were a subject matter expert. Those three things, right? So when Charles looked back and he's like, look, this guy's not that much. That guy's not better, right? He doesn't know more than I do, or you know what I'm saying? Like when you just compared it, like deep down, Charles felt like, look, if that guy was crushing it online, then he could do the same thing. And using his specialized knowledge and expertise, he could coach his own, potential clients, right? It's just that simple. So fast forward, the thing that was crazy about this whole situation, from my perspective, and I think Charles would have admitted to this too as well, was that, we were in the middle of, sort of mid-pandemic at this point. By the time we kind of circled back, the media was predicting a recession, high unemployment rates, and how people were going to be cutting back on spending, et cetera, et cetera. And here was, Charles proposing a new coaching program where clients would be paying him, of course, thousands of dollars to get coaching, right? And it seemed like a bad idea given the circumstances, but it was worth the risk. And part of that was because someone else was doing that, right? Someone else was already taking strides in that arena. So long story short, we launched Charles's program sometime in April. And in about a month and a half, 45 days later, his program became a 5-figure a month coaching program. And that was satisfying to see, for me to be, of course, a catalyst and involved in that process. It was like really delightful. And it was just great, right? And I can't promise that, I wouldn't even promise that result to everyone, but for the people who fit the profile of where Charles is, right? Subject matter expert, consultant, coach, there's a certain amount of certainty, right, that I have about their likelihood of success. But I want to kind of dial back something a little bit. One of the things I realized was after this sort of breakthrough that, I figured there were people, if Charles needed that kind of help, right? And we produce such remarkable outcomes and results, then maybe I could help other, right, consultants and coaches and subject matter experts who might be kind of struggling with the same thing, where they're annoyed by looking at someone in sort of a similar, comparable role in their niche, and that person's kind of beating them out, right? And or that person's just being successful, right, and doing amazing things. And why should one person's kind of dominate the market when you also have equivalent skill sets and know-how as far as to make things happen? So that's when I decided I'd give a few coaches and consultants and subject matter experts was of course specialized knowledge and opportunity to work with me, right? To work together and to produce similar results, right? The one that Charles received and also continues to enjoy to this day, right? So, but I also knew I couldn't work with just everyone, right? Like I just described a moment ago, right? There's like a particular profile of individuals that I am best, right, when it comes to serving, right? So all that said, funny thing I just wanted to share is that as I looked at this, although I'd known Charles for, I'd known him almost a decade, right? He was like a veteran entrepreneur. In the past, he was someone who was at times a little indecisive, right? I mean, you can relate to this. He was a little indecisive, sometimes slippery, right? Like hard to catch, right? And non-committal, right? Like when it was time to like move ahead with a project, it was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that, right? That was the situation. That was the case. And I was, in the past, and I'd also felt like, he was sometimes a little bit, tight-fisted with the money when it came to like paying for the project, right? You can definitely identify with that. Sometimes you got those clients who, they reach out, they're like, hey, I need your help with that. You're like, all right, great. I'll send over the proposal. I'll send over the invoice. And like, there's just crickets, right? So I know that is also, and I also felt like, I wasn't always fond of discussing business, right? Like after a while, someone sort of reaches out to you from time to time about business, an opportunity to serve them or to coach or consult them, but they don't necessarily pull the trigger. You kind of like aren't always eager to pick up that phone, right? Or to reply to that email. But this time around, Charles was different. And some of the things that stood out to me when he'd reach out to me this time were the following, right? I knew that he was fed up. He was fed up and couldn't stand seeing someone else less talented, without as fewer, maybe not even as qualified, and to some extent maybe didn't even have as much money as he had, right, to get the job done, right? He was totally fed up with that. He was also clear about what he needed to do to match his peers' success and exceed their results, right? So some of you, based on your niche, who your peers are, who your cohorts are, and whether they're crushing it or not. At least you have a sense of it, right? And you're clear that, of what you need to do, or at least should do, right? Which consists of talking or at least contacting someone who can help you get those results and those outcomes. The other thing was he was extremely coachable, right? And by coachable, I mean, look, at the end of the day, when you reach out to a particular person, like I said, you know, you're reaching out for your hero or your hitman, or your specialist or whoever that person is, you want results, right? And as a result, you got to be coachable. You got to be willing to do what they're asking you to do, right? And in the midst of the chaos, right? And you might even be able to, you know, hear some of the background noise, right? As I'm sharing this with you. So the other thing, he was also ready to move forward, ready to finally, you know, he wasn't as tight-fisted financially with moving forward with the project. He was able to put his money where his mouth was about the project, right? And these are the things that were different about working with Charles this time around. So these were the qualities that Charles possessed, right? That made the program roll out so successful. And like I said, become a 5-figure a month coaching program, and genuinely a really almost mid $250,000 business, right? If we are on pace and scaling at the way to do this, and at doing this. And so, you know, like I said, I wanted to help other people like Charles, right? That was kind of part of what inspired me to shoot this video. And I decided, all right, well, if there are people who want that kind of assistance and support, you know, one of the things that I could offer at least was a minimal, a webinar, a training of some sort, that would reveal what I did to help him roll out his program and how it could help, you know, that person get the same results, right? So if that's you, right? If you're sort of like in that Charles role and you are someone who is a subject matter expert, a coach, a consultant, and you're looking and you're noticing like, look, you don't have, in some cases, you don't have a brick and mortar, right? But at the same time, like the financial climate is kind of creeping in, and, you know, you still need to grow, you still need to thrive, then, you know, the webinar could be a possible option for you, right? To participate in and to really see if what worked for Charles could work for you. Now, here's the thing. I don't have any questions about whether or not what worked for Charles can work for you, right? Because I already know, I've already seen the results, right? And I get to live out those results as I see. And, you know, he was just, you know, reached out to me not too long ago and just shared with me how as the program is growing, that there are more and more people who are coming forth with wanting to pay him, right, for more coaching, right? Like multitudes, more amounts, money for coaching, and which is, again, just inspiring and encouraging to hear. So the webinar that I'm sharing with you, I'm talking about, is one that it's a little different, right? The structure of it is, it's almost like you're getting a private kind of one-on-one webinar, right? There's two formats of it. There's a sort of 15, 30-minute block version where you're getting a private webinar, like as in one-on-one, I'm walking you through it, right? And the other version is sort of, you know, where everything is presented in whole, and you kind of see it from top to bottom as far as what was done that assisted in getting that done. But I want to share, you know, I kicked this off by saying, you know, how are coaches and consultants and subject matter experts really thriving in the midst of the chaos? Well, you know, Charles is a perfect example. Well, how did he do it? Well, one thing is that, well, before I get to that, I want to just share what the webinar is so that you can kind of, if you want to jump on that, you can make that happen. So the details of this is this, you know, it's not an evergreen event, right? It's not going to be around forever. So I'm making the training available only to those who can relate to Charles, right? And no sort of tire kicking situations. So here are the details. It's the revenue scaling blueprint, right? It's a webinar, and if you're a good fit for it, here's what you should know about it. And I go over, of course, what coaches and consultants are doing. I mean, you already kind of get a clue about it as far as what Charles did with moving forward. But here's a few things. So you're going to learn inside of the webinar model that you participate in, whether you participate in the 15 to 30-minute version of it or the full streamed version. You know, you're going to learn this: how having competitive prices, right, can hurt your business and your customers. So one thing that people are doing who are consultants, coaches, subject matter experts, it's like they are not thriving by trying to make their prices competitive, especially even in the face of all of this. If anything, their prices are just as high and in some cases higher. You'll learn how that is, that your competitive pricing, if you've had that going on, is choking your business out. Another point, the number one customer acquisition mistake that's probably robbing you of thousands of dollars per customer, right? There is something that Charles, and I walked Charles through, that was really key, right? In showing him how to bring people on board and to make sure that they were premium priced customers, right? People who would appreciate that. You also learn the 4-step proprietary revenue scaling process, blueprint process, that can double or even triple your monthly revenue, right? In about, like I said, 15 minutes or less, I'll be able to know, you'll be able to know in that version of the webinar, if you're up for that, like what that is. The other thing is there's a Google Doc, right? Web sheet that replaces, I call it, this is my opinion, I think it replaces fear, worry, stress, uncertainty, right? With hope and excitement and clarity to start producing consistent revenue in your business, right? As a subject matter expert. And you also learn from this webinar why your best customers need higher prices, right? That's just what it just comes down to, right? Like I said, this isn't for everyone. If you want Charles's results, I'll show you. But if you have, to also, but the other thing I have to say is that you have to also have the attitude, right, that Charles had. So if not, the webinar wouldn't work for you, okay? It's just not going to be in your best use of time. So head over to that, provide the link for that, and you can make that work for you. What else? Yeah, that really sums it up here. So anyway, in the end, some of the things, just to give you a little bit of a hint of what happened. There were 4 key things that I did with, looking back, that I did with Charles, and that Charles and I are still in the process of doing to scale out his project. And it's really simple. It's really breakthrough. It's groundbreaking. But look, if you are really an ambitious, an A player, or want to be an A player in your niche, this is the time to take an action. Now I want to wrap up. I want to share this. There's something that I learned from one of my mentors, who's a coach and consultant and just a magnificent marketer, right? Marketer, salesperson, and subject matter expert, right? So if you are not a great marketer, if you are not a great salesperson, right, and a subject matter expert, it is hard to thrive in this marketplace, right? You got to either be all 3 or have someone who fills the blanks, okay? So that's one of the things that you should get very, very crystal clear about, right? If you already know your subject, but if you don't know how to market it, and you don't know how to even the third, maybe even 4th leg of it, you don't even know how to create a system to scale it, you're done, you're screwed, right? So all that said, I learned a lesson, so many lessons, right, from my mentor. And one of the things that I became crystal clear about was that, that program was about a $10,000 program, okay? And one of the things that I kind of thought about when I thought about the investment in participating was, there was a point that was made about doing it on your own, right? That really got my attention. And the doing it on your own kind of thing got my attention because I think as consultants, we really feel like we know a lot, we feel like, I got this. I know what's going on. I can handle this. And the truth is, we can't. Because if we could, we would have gotten it done already, right? We would have been at the 5-figure or maybe 6-figure month coaching business already, right? And one of the things that I got walking away from that was that if I continue to try to do this thing on my own, which I'd been trying to do, right, prior to that coaching program, 6, 7, 8 years, 9 years. I was like, how many more years do I have left to just trying to figure this out, right? There was just so much confusion and uncertainty as far as the different schools of thought about how to market, about how to get your product in front of people, and is it blogging, is it your social media following, on and on and on and on and on, right? There was just all these just pieces that I was always trying to assemble and feeling like I was always so close. I'm just so close. I'm just so close. And then it would just fall apart. Or when something fell apart, I wouldn't know like how to troubleshoot in a systematic way, right? To get a diagnostic of like where the pain point was. And so, when it really came down to making that investment with that program, I thought, how long do I want to go through that, right? Can I afford to go through that another 3, 4 more years and trying to figure it out, whether it was Facebook marketing or copywriting or how to set up and create a landing page and all these different pieces, getting your autoresponders set up and how to track the metrics of a marketing campaign. It was insane. All the stuff that I, tried to do on my own, right? And I still, I still knew to some extent, yeah, as a digital marketer, I knew the components. I knew the different pieces, right? But there was a certain way that I wanted this particular project to take off, that I was, reaching out to him about, that I just needed that kind of firepower, right? And that's the same situation that you may find yourself in. And so the difference between where I find myself today is because I took action and I made an investment in the learning curve being shortened, right? I didn't want to, I was going to spend money anyway. I was going to be bleeding hundreds and thousands of dollars of resources, right? In trial and error. Or I could just finally say, let me put myself in a situation where it's not just about figuring out what to do. It was about aligning myself with who was doing it and who was producing those outcomes and producing those results. So that's my final words as far as to you, depending on where you are. And I hope that you do identify yourself as someone who, your message deserves to be heard, especially in this climate, right? Your narrative, what you offer is important. It's crucial. It's crucial for you, of course, for you to feed and serve and support your own family and the people that you care about, as well as the people that you'll be coaching who their business hangs by, or their life hangs by, whether or not they get the information you have to transmit to them, right? And so this is not just about whether you can afford a program that makes a difference for you. It's well, one, yeah, can you not, like, what's the cost, right, of you not getting involved, right, and not at least taking the initiative? And like I said, it's not for everyone, right? So some of you may take the initiative and you may not qualify, and which is okay, which I'll happily share resources to support you. But for those who are, this is your time, or this is the real opportunity or program for you, then, the next thing is, yes, right, you also give other people an opportunity by elevating yourself to be able to elevate them, right? To get your message out, to get your marketing out, to get whatever it is that you have to offer delivered to them, right? With the right kind of help. So anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And you can head over, use the link nearby here, depending on where you see this. And we'll take it from there. I'll be more than glad to help you and help you take it to that next level. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and check out that revenue scaling blueprint, and see you at the top, and of course beyond that as well. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.